Let me tell you about Marcus Rodriguez, or as literally everyone on the Coalition flagship called him, Mop. Yeah, real creative bunch, these aliens. Marcus had been mopping floors and cleaning air vents on the Dominion's Pride for 8 months, which in galactic war terms meant he'd survived longer than most Coalition battle strategies. The thing about being humanity's most invisible man in space is that you get to see everything. And brother, what Marcus saw was not inspiring confidence in Earth's chances of survival. Attention crew, Captain Vextar's voice squawked through the ship's comm system sounding like a peacock with delusions of grandeur. Today marks another glorious day in our inevitable victory over the barbaric Zephyrian Empire. Marcus paused mid-mop and snorted. Inevitable victory. Right. That's why they'd lost the last 14 battles and were currently hiding behind an asteroid field like cosmic roaches. Captain Vextar was what humans might generously call bird-brained, except that would be insulting to birds everywhere. Picture a 7-foot-tall peacock who'd watched too many war movies and you'd get the idea. The captain's brilliant tactical philosophy could be summed up as charge dramatically and hope for the best. Then there was Admiral Glurp, the Coalition's supreme strategist. Glurp looked like someone had crossed a garden slug with a business consultant and somehow made it worse. Every briefing with Glurp was a masterclass in corporate buzzwords applied to intergalactic warfare. We need to think outside the box and leverage our core competencies to maximize our strategic advantage, Glurp had said just yesterday. While their strategic advantage consisted of exactly 3 functioning ships and a prayer. Marcus squeezed his mop bucket and wondered, not for the first time, how Earth had managed to ally itself with the galaxy's biggest collection of incompetent middle management. He was cleaning ventilation shaft C7 when he heard it. Voices, speaking in rapid Zephyrian clicks and hisses, coming through the air recycling system. Now, most people would assume this was just routine chatter from their Zephyrian prisoners. Most people would be wrong. Marcus had spent enough time crawling through these vents to know exactly which sections connected to which parts of the ship. And C7 definitely did not connect to the detention center. It connected to the long-range communications array. The Zephyrians weren't prisoners chatting. They were actively communicating with their fleet. Marcus pressed his ear to the vent grating, his high school Zephyrian language classes suddenly seeming a lot more relevant. He caught fragments about coordinates, fleet positions, something about the final assault, and when the humans are eliminated. His blood went cold. Not because of the death threats, mind you. Marcus had been getting those since elementary school. No, what terrified him was the realization that someone on this ship was feeding the enemy real-time intelligence about Coalition movements. And the only reason he'd discovered it was because nobody bothered to notice where the janitor was cleaning. Marcus finished his work with mechanical precision, his mind racing. He needed to report this, obviously. But to whom? Captain Vextar, who treated humans like amusing pets. Admiral Glurp, who'd probably schedule a meeting to discuss scheduling a meeting about the issue. As he wheeled his janitor cart through the corridors, Marcus noticed something else that made his stomach drop. The cleaning schedule had him assigned to different sections of the ship each day, and over the past few months, he'd been unconsciously mapping out patterns. Where crew members went when they went there, which areas had increased activity before battles. He wasn't just a janitor. He was an inadvertent intelligence gathering operation. And if he could piece together Coalition patterns from mopping floors, what could the enemy learn from having someone on the inside feeding them information? Marcus Rodriguez, invisible man of the galaxy, suddenly realized he might be the only person who could save humanity from complete annihilation. No pressure or anything. The next morning, Marcus approached his work with the focused intensity of someone who'd just realized their day job might prevent the extinction of the human race. He started paying attention to everything: crew rotations, supply deliveries, maintenance schedules, even the way people walked differently when they were nervous about upcoming battles. Turns out, when you're invisible to everyone around you, you become the perfect observer. Lieutenant Zara Patel was the first to notice Marcus's sudden transformation from background furniture to someone who seemed to be taking detailed mental notes. Zara was that rare coalition officer who actually acknowledged the existence of humans as sentient beings rather than amusing bipedal cleaning equipment. "You've been staring at that wall panel for 10 minutes, she said, finding Marcus apparently fascinated by a maintenance access port in Corridor 7. "Just noticed it's been vibrating differently lately," Marcus replied, which wasn't technically a lie. "Usually means there's increased data flow through the main communication lines." Zara raised an eyebrow. "You know about data flow patterns? You pick things up when you're crawling through vents all day." Marcus shrugged. "Like how yesterday there was definitely unauthorized access to the long-range comms during Gamma shift." That got her attention fast. "Explain." Marcus looked around the corridor, noting the usual collection of aliens going about their duties while studiously ignoring the humans. "Walk with me while I work." Less conspicuous. As they moved through the ship, Marcus laid out what he'd discovered. The unauthorized transmissions weren't random, but they coincided perfectly with coalition fleet movements. Someone was providing real-time intelligence to the Zephyrians, and they were using the ship's own communication array to do it. "More importantly," Marcus said, pausing to spray some cleaning solution on a bulkhead, "I think I know when they're planning to use all this intelligence." He pulled out his cleaning schedule tablet, which looked innocuous enough but was actually his makeshift intelligence analysis tool. "See, I've been tracking movement patterns throughout the ship. Through activity, supply deliveries, maintenance requests. When you spend 8 months being invisible, you notice things." Zara leaned in, studying the seemingly random collection of cleaning assignments and work orders. "Every time we've prepared for a major engagement, there's been a specific pattern of increased activity in certain sectors. Communications spike, senior staff start having more meetings, supply runs increase by exactly 18%. It's like clockwork." "And you're seeing this pattern now?" "Started 3 days ago. But here's the kicker." Marcus scrolled through more data. "The Zephyrians are positioning their fleet exactly where they'd need to be to counter our next 3 potential tactical moves. They're not just getting our current position. They're getting our entire strategic planning." Zara was quiet for a long moment. "Marcus, this is bigger than unauthorized communications. This suggests we have a high-level intelligence leak." "Gets worse." Marcus continued cleaning while he talked, maintaining his cover. "Based on the positioning data I've been tracking, the Zephyrians are planning something massive, like end-of-the-war massive. Fleet movements suggest they're consolidating for one decisive engagement. We need to report this immediately." Marcus laughed bitterly. "To who?" "Captain Vextar, who thinks humans are barely evolved enough to operate cleaning equipment. Admiral Glurp, who'd probably want to form a committee to study the possibility of maybe considering the potential implications of our impending doom." "Point taken." Zara was quiet for a moment. "What do you propose?" "Honestly, I think we need to figure out who the leak is before we report anything. Because right now, reporting this to the wrong person means we've just told the enemy that we know they know what we're doing." Marcus finished cleaning the section they were in and moved to the next corridor. "Plus, there's something else. I don't think the coalition command structure is set up to handle intelligence that comes from janitors. They'll dismiss it automatically, even if it saves their lives." "So what's your plan?" Marcus grinned, and for the first time since arriving on the ship he felt like maybe humanity had a fighting chance. "Simple. We figure out what the Zephyrians are really planning. We identify our leak. And then we save everyone's lives without bothering to ask permission." "That sounds incredibly dangerous and probably against several dozen coalition regulations." "Lieutenant," Marcus said, wringing out his mop with dramatic flair, "I'm a human janitor on an alien warship in the middle of a losing war. Dangerous and against regulations pretty much describes my entire existence." Zara smiled. All right, Mop. Where do we start? With the one thing no one ever pays attention to, Marcus replied. The cleaning schedule. Marcus learned the hard way that trying to save the galaxy through proper channels was like trying to perform brain surgery with a mop. Theoretically possible, but likely to end badly for everyone involved. His first attempt went through Captain Vextar, who listened to approximately 30 seconds of Marcus's intelligence briefing before interrupting with the intellectual depth of a decorative houseplant. Janitor, Vextar squawked, preening his ridiculous feather crest. Your concerns have been noted and will be filed appropriately. Now return to your custodial duties and leave the strategic thinking to your intellectual superiors. Marcus tried again. Sir, with respect, the enemy has detailed knowledge of our battle plans and their positioning for a final assault that will filed appropriately. Vextar's voice hit that particular frequency that suggested his brain had officially left the building. Security, please escort the human back to his proper workspace. Strike one. Admiral Glurp proved even more frustrating, if such a thing were possible. Getting an appointment required filling out Forms 27B through 31F, submitting a formal request for audience consideration, and waiting for approval from the Strategic Communications Review Board. The forms alone took 3 days. Marcus spent those 3 days watching Zephyrian fleet movements continue to shift into increasingly ominous patterns while drowning in paperwork that asked essential questions like reason for strategic input request and qualification assessment for non-commissioned personnel attempting to provide tactical advice. When Marcus finally got his audience with Admiral Glurp, the conversation went exactly as well as anyone who'd ever dealt with corporate management would expect. So you're telling me, Glurp oozed, his slug-like body glistening under the bridge lights, that our sanitation associate has identified potential intelligence irregularities through unauthorized analysis of routine maintenance schedules. That's one way to put it. Marcus tried to keep the sarcasm out of his voice. He failed. Well, this is certainly thinking outside the box. We need to leverage your insights and circle back on the tactical implications. But first, we'll need to run this up the flagpole and see who salutes. Marcus stared at the Admiral, wondering if it was possible for someone to die from prolonged exposure to business buzzwords. Sir, respectfully, we don't have time for committees and reviews. The Zephyrians are moving into position for a decisive engagement within the next 72 hours. But that's where synergy comes into play. We need to right-size this opportunity and make sure all stakeholders are aligned on our go-forward strategy. Marcus felt his soul leaving his body. Admiral, they're going to kill all of us if we don't act on this intelligence. I hear what you're saying, and we definitely need to put this on the radar going forward. Let's schedule a meeting to discuss scheduling a meeting about this. Strike two. Next came Chief Compliance Officer Blipnar, an insectoid nightmare who spoke exclusively in regulations and seemed personally offended by the existence of initiative. Regulation 847.3 clearly states that intelligence gathering activities must be conducted by properly certified intelligence personnel. Blipnar chittered, consulting a tablet that appeared to contain every rule ever written in the history of organized civilization. Regulation 847.4 further specifies that sanitation personnel are prohibited from engaging in unauthorized data analysis. But I found evidence of enemy infiltration, Marcus protested. Regulation 1205.7 indicates that reports of enemy infiltration must be submitted through proper channels using Form 94Q, which requires authorization signatures from both your direct supervisor and the Intelligence Review Committee. My direct supervisor is the Automated Cleaning Schedule Program. Then you'll need to submit Form 12R for Artificial Intelligence Authorization Override, which requires approval from the Synthetic Consciousness Liaison Department. Marcus rubbed his temples. Is there a form for preventing the annihilation of all sentient life? That would fall under Regulation 2156.8, Emergency Protocols for Existential Threats, but filing such a claim requires evidence validation from no fewer than 3 separate department heads, none of whom can be from sanitation services. Strike 3, 4, and possibly 17. That evening, Marcus found himself in the ship's human quarters, which was basically a converted storage bay that smelled faintly of disinfectant and broken dreams. Zara was there, along with Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's most overqualified waste management specialist. "Let me guess," Elena said, not looking up from her tablet where she was analyzing garbage disposal patterns. "The Coalition brass took your galaxy-saving intelligence and filed it under amusing human nonsense. Worse, they want to form a committee to study the possibility of maybe considering acknowledging that I might have stumbled across something worth investigating." "Welcome to galactic politics," Zara sighed, "where bureaucracy goes to die a slow, painful death and take everyone else with it." Marcus slumped against a bulkhead. "So what do we do?" "Wait for the Zephyrians to wipe us out while filling out forms in triplicate." Elena finally looked up from her work. "Or we could do what humans have always done when faced with incompetent leadership." "Which is?" "Mean? We fix it ourselves and ask forgiveness later." She smiled grimly. "Good thing we're already considered expendable. Makes it easier to take risks." Marcus felt that familiar spark of hope. "You have a plan?" "I have the beginning of a plan. But first, we need to talk to the rest of Earth's servant class. Turns out being invisible has some serious advantages when it comes to intelligence gathering. Time to show these aliens what happens when you underestimate the cleaning crew." The revelation came during what Marcus would later describe as the galaxy's first strategic planning session, conducted entirely in a janitor's closet. "You mean all of you have been accidentally gathering intelligence?" Marcus asked, staring at the small group of humans crammed into Storage Bay 7C. Chef Tommy Nakamura nodded enthusiastically. "Every supply delivery tells a story. When they order extra rations, we're preparing for extended operations. When they request specific nutritional supplements, I can tell which alien species are expecting combat stress. Yesterday they ordered enough caffeine substitute to keep the bridge crew awake for a week." Ruby O'Brien, the ship's human mechanic, pulled up schematics on her tablet. "And every repair request reveals tactical information. When they ask me to reinforce hull sections, strengthen weapon mounts, or modify engine configurations, they're basically giving me the battle plan. Last week I was ordered to install emergency escape pods in specific locations. Guess which sections those were?" "Command decks and strategic planning rooms," Elena answered. "I know because waste disposal from those areas has tripled. Stress eating is universal, apparently." Marcus felt that moment when scattered puzzle pieces suddenly form a complete picture. "How long have you all been tracking this stuff?" "Since we got here," Tommy replied. "Didn't seem important until now." "Not important?" Zara looked incredulous. "You've been conducting intelligence operations without realizing it." Dr. Elena Vasquez spread her tablet on the improvised table. "It gets better. Through waste analysis, I can track crew health, morale, and preparation levels. When senior staff start consuming more stimulants and antacids, they're planning something stressful. When medical waste includes specific medications, I know which types of injuries they're preparing for." Ruby added, "Maintenance schedules reveal everything. When they want stealth modifications, communication upgrades, or defensive improvements, the work orders tell me exactly what kind of engagement they're planning." Marcus started connecting the dots. "Tommy, you said they ordered caffeine for extended operations. Ruby, what kind of modifications have they requested?" "Long-range sensor upgrades, communication jamming equipment," and Ruby paused, checking her notes. "Emergency fleet coordination systems." "Elena, what does medical waste tell you?" "They're preparing for a major engagement with high casualty expectations." Also, someone's been stress-eating chocolate at unprecedented levels. That would be Admiral Glurp, Zara confirmed. Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place. They're not planning to fight the Zephyrians. They're planning to run from them. The group fell silent. Think about it, Marcus continued. Extended operations equipment, long-range sensors, emergency escape pods and command sections, fleet coordination systems. This isn't battle preparation. This is retreat preparation. Tommy frowned. But Captain Vextar keeps talking about glorious victory. Captain Vextar talks about a lot of things. Most of them involve preening and dramatic posturing. Marcus began pacing the tiny storage area. But what if the real strategic plan is to abandon the outer colonies and fall back to fortified positions? That would explain the supply requests I've been seeing, Ruby said slowly. They're not just preparing this ship for retreat. They're preparing the entire fleet. Zara leaned forward. Marcus, if you're right, that means the intelligence leak isn't about battle plans. It's about evacuation routes and defensive positions. Which means the Zephyrians know exactly where we're planning to make our last stand. Marcus felt his stomach drop. They're going to be waiting for us. Elena looked up from her tablet. There's something else. Waste disposal requests from the intelligence section have included a lot of destroyed data storage devices. Someone's been covering their tracks. The leak isn't just feeding information to the enemy, Ruby realized. They're preparing to disappear when this all goes wrong. Marcus stopped pacing. How long until the fleet reaches the fallback position? Based on the maintenance schedule, Ruby checked her notes, approximately 18 hours. And how long until the Zephyrians can intercept us there? Zara consulted her tactical display. If they know our route and destination, they'll be waiting for us when we arrive. Marcus looked around at the small group of humans who'd accidentally become the Coalition's most effective intelligence unit. Well, team, looks like it's up to us to save everyone's lives without bothering to tell them we're doing it. Tommy grinned. Wouldn't be the first time Earth's service industry fixed a problem that management created. What's the plan? Elena asked. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in months it felt genuine. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to MacGyver our way out of this mess using nothing but janitor supplies, kitchen equipment, and the element of complete surprise. That sounds completely insane, Ruby observed. Insane enough that it might actually work, Zara agreed. Plus, Marcus added, we're already considered expendable. If this goes wrong, they can't demote us any further. True. Hard to get lower than invisible. Marcus picked up his mop with renewed purpose. Time to show these aliens what happens when you underestimate Earth's cleaning crew. The beauty of being the ship's invisible workforce was that nobody questioned why humans were suddenly everywhere at once, carrying cleaning supplies, food service equipment, and maintenance tools through every section of the ship. Marcus coordinated the operation through the ship's cleaning supply closets, which doubled as the galaxy's most overlooked intelligence command centers. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. If they couldn't stop the Coalition from walking into a trap, they'd make sure the trap couldn't be sprung. Ruby, status report on the engine modifications. Ruby's voice crackled through the improvised communication network they'd built using maintenance intercoms. Sabotage complete. I've introduced calculated inefficiencies into the hyperdrive systems. We'll drop out of hyperspace approximately 6 hours before reaching the designated coordinates. Won't they notice? They'll notice, but it'll look like normal engine stress from extended operations. I'm very good at making my sabotage look like accidental mechanical failure. Tommy chimed in from the galley. Kitchen sabotage is complete. I've introduced mild sedatives into the senior staff's meal rotation. Nothing dangerous, just enough to slow their reaction times and make them slightly more agreeable to suggestions. And by suggestions, you mean? Lieutenant Patel will be suggesting alternative tactical positions during the emergency strategy session that's about to happen. Marcus smiled as he applied what looked like routine cleaning solution to a series of communication relay panels. In reality, he was introducing precisely calibrated interference that would disrupt enemy communications without affecting coalition systems. Elena, how's the intelligence confusion campaign? I've been feeding false information through the waste disposal systems, Elena replied. Turns out, when you control garbage processing, you control a surprising amount of data flow. Our spy has been receiving detailed intelligence about coalition positions, fleet movements, and strategic plans. And that intelligence is completely fabricated. According to what I've been feeding them, the coalition is planning to make their last stand at coordinates that will put them in the middle of an asteroid field with no strategic value whatsoever. Marcus paused his cleaning to appreciate the elegance of the plan. So when the Zephyrians move to intercept us at the fake coordinates, they'll be waiting in empty space while we're actually regrouping at a defensible position. Exactly. Plus, I've included false information about coalition fleet strength, weapon capabilities, and defensive systems. If they believe even half of it, they're going to be very confused when the shooting starts. The next phase required more direct action. Marcus made his way to the bridge, pushing his janitor cart with practiced invisibility. The cart contained his usual cleaning supplies, plus several items that Ruby had modified for more creative applications. Captain Vextar was in the middle of what he probably thought was an inspiring speech about tactical excellence and glorious victory. Marcus began cleaning around the command stations, positioned perfectly to overhear everything while remaining completely ignored. The enemy expects us to retreat like cowards, Vextar proclaimed, his feather crest puffed up with artificial confidence. Instead, we will show them the true meaning of coalition strength. Admiral Glurp oozed his way closer to the tactical display. I think we need to leverage our core competencies and maximize our strategic advantages. This is definitely a paradigm shift opportunity. Marcus rolled his eyes and continued cleaning, while discreetly applying modified cleaning solutions to specific control panels. Ruby's modifications meant that in approximately 30 minutes, several key systems would experience minor malfunctions that would require immediate attention. The beauty was that the malfunctions would force the bridge crew to use backup systems, which happened to be the same systems that Zara had quietly modified to prioritize defensive positioning over offensive operations. Sir, Lieutenant Patel spoke up, consulting her tactical display. I'm reading some concerning intelligence about enemy fleet movements. Recommend we adjust our approach vector to avoid potential ambush positions. Vextar waved dismissively. Nonsense. The enemy wouldn't dare challenge us in direct confrontation. That's when Marcus's sabotage kicked in. Warning lights began flashing across the bridge as multiple systems reported minor but attention-demanding malfunctions. What's happening? Vextar squawked. Multiple system alerts, sir, the navigation officer reported. Engine efficiency down 12%, communication arrays experiencing interference, and tactical systems are recommending defensive positioning protocols. Probably just stress from extended operations, Admiral Glurp suggested. We should pivot to damage control mode and reassess our strategic positioning. Marcus suppressed a smile. Tommy's sedatives were working perfectly. Sir, Zara pressed, given the system malfunctions, recommend we implement contingency positioning. Move the fleet to coordinates that maximize our defensive capabilities while the technical teams resolve these issues. Vextar looked around the bridge at the flashing warning lights and confused crew members. For once in his military career, caution seemed like the reasonable choice. Very well. Implement defensive positioning. But this is a temporary measure until we can return to our glorious assault. Marcus finished cleaning the bridge and wheeled his cart toward the exit, catching Zara's eye just long enough to exchange a subtle nod. Phase 1 complete. The Coalition fleet was now moving toward a defensible position instead of flying directly into a Zephyrian ambush. Phase 2 would be even more interesting. Ruby, Marcus spoke into his comm unit as soon as he was clear of the bridge. Time to show them what human engineering can really do. Marcus, you beautiful genius. I've been waiting for this moment since I got assigned to this flying circus. Tommy, prepare for the galaxy's most creative use of kitchen equipment. Already on it. Who knew that industrial food processors could be so versatile? Alina, ready for the intelligence coup de grace? I've been saving the best false information for last. This is going to be fun. Marcus looked around at the Coalition ship, filled with aliens who had no idea that their invisible human servants were about to save their lives. Time to remind the galaxy why you never underestimate Earth's service industry. The aftermath of what Coalition historians would later call the invisible victory was almost more entertaining than the battle itself. Captain Vextar stood on the bridge, staring at tactical displays that showed the complete destruction of the Zephyrian ambush fleet, while trying to figure out how his temporary defensive positioning had somehow resulted in the most decisive Coalition victory of the entire war. I don't understand, Vextar said, his feather crest drooping in confusion. The enemy was waiting at the wrong coordinates. Their intelligence was completely inaccurate. Their battle plans were designed to counter tactics we weren't using. Admiral Glurp oozed closer to the displays, his slug-like body glistening with what might have been pride or possibly just moisture. This is clearly the result of our synergistic approach to strategic planning. We leveraged our tactical advantages and maximized our operational effectiveness. Marcus, who was cleaning nearby panels and listening to this masterpiece of accidental leadership, had to bite his tongue to keep from laughing. Lieutenant Zara Patel stepped forward. Sir, I believe the victory was due to intelligence provided by our human personnel. The bridge fell silent. You could have heard a feather drop, which in Vextar's case was entirely possible. Human personnel. Vextar's voice hit that particular frequency that indicated his brain was attempting to process incompatible information. Yes, sir. Specifically, our maintenance and service staff identified enemy intelligence gathering activities and developed countermeasures that prevented the ambush while providing false information to enemy forces. Admiral Glurp's eye stalk swiveled toward Marcus, who was still pushing his mop with studied casualness. You're telling me that our sanitation associate prevented a strategic disaster? Not just him, Zara continued. The entire human support staff. They identified intelligence leaks, tracked enemy patterns, and implemented countermeasures using maintenance schedules, food service logistics, and waste management protocols. Marcus straightened up from his cleaning. We prefer the term alternative intelligence methodologies. Vextar stared at him for a long moment. You mean to tell me that while I was planning glorious victory through superior tactics, you were mopping your way to strategic success? Something like that. Marcus wrung out his mop with deliberate nonchalance. Turns out that when nobody notices you exist, you see everything that's actually happening. The bridge crew exchanged glances, trying to process the concept that their most decisive military victory had been achieved by janitors, cooks, and maintenance workers. This is unprecedented, Admiral Glurp announced. We need to right-size our approach to human resource utilization. Clearly, we've been undervaluing these tactical assets. Marcus held up a hand. Before you get any ideas about promoting us or putting us in charge of anything official, we have a counteroffer. You're negotiating. Vextar's voice cracked. We want to keep doing exactly what we've been doing. Same jobs, same invisibility, same complete lack of official recognition. The aliens looked confused, which was pretty much their default state, but somehow seemed more pronounced than usual. You see, Marcus continued, our effectiveness depends entirely on everyone underestimating us. The moment you give us official intelligence roles, we become visible. The moment we're visible, we lose our greatest advantage. Elena stepped forward from her position near the waste management console. We'll keep running intelligence operations through cleaning schedules, maintenance logs, and garbage analysis. You'll keep thinking we're just the help. Tommy emerged from a service corridor. And I'll keep tracking enemy movements through supply chain logistics and stress-related eating patterns. Ruby appeared from behind an engineering panel. While I monitor tactical preparations through repair requests and equipment modifications, Vextar looked around at the humans who had just saved the Coalition fleet while maintaining the fiction that they were nothing more than support staff. This is highly irregular. Sir, Zara said diplomatically, irregular tactics just won us the war. Admiral Glurp consulted his tablet. Well, from a human resources perspective, this does represent optimal utilization of existing personnel without requiring additional training or resource allocation. Marcus smiled. Plus, think of the cost savings. No need for expensive intelligence equipment when you've got humans with mops. And Elena added, if anyone asks how you achieved this victory, you can take full credit for your brilliant leadership and tactical innovation. Vextar's feather crest perked up slightly. That is true. My strategic positioning was quite masterful. Absolutely inspired, Admiral Glurp agreed. A perfect example of thinking outside the box while leveraging our core competencies. Marcus exchanged looks with his fellow humans. They'd just given their commanding officers a way to save face while ensuring that Earth's invisible intelligence network could continue operating without interference. 3 months later, Marcus was back to his regular cleaning routine, mopping floors and maintaining air vents throughout the ship. The difference was that now his cleaning schedule was the most closely guarded strategic document in the Coalition fleet. Captain Vextar had gotten a promotion for his innovative tactical approaches. Admiral Glurp had been reassigned to strategic planning, where he could maximize his synergistic paradigm shifts to his heart's content. And Marcus Rodriguez, officially still just a janitor, was quietly running the most effective intelligence operation in galactic history. You know, Zara said, finding Marcus cleaning the same corridor where this whole adventure had started, you could have taken credit. Could have gotten recognition, rank, official authority. Marcus paused in his mopping and looked around at the ship full of aliens who still saw him as invisible, harmless, just part of the background. Lieutenant, he said with a grin, why would I want to be management when I can be the power behind the throne? He went back to his cleaning, whistling quietly to himself. After all, somebody had to keep the galaxy safe. And as it turned out, that somebody was a janitor with a mop and a talent for being underestimated.